Good evening, boys and girls and Stingray parents. This evening we'll be looking at equations again. This time, though, we're going to see the variable on the right as well as the left. Up until this point, the variables have always purposely been placed on the left. You need to be comfortable with seeing them on the left or the right. These equations also, we will be simplifying. That means they're going to be common or like terms that we can combine together to make our equations even more streamlined. Well, let's practice. Class, now I know when we look at these two equations, you're going to say they have to be more than one step. And in a sense, that's true. But how they're one-step equations is this. Once we simplify them, combine like terms in both of the expressions that are being compared, the left to the right, once we combine like terms and simplify, there's really only one step that's required to isolate the variable. So in that sense, they are one-step equations, even though we're going to have to do quite a few things to both of these equations before we solve them. Well, let's take a look at the first equation. And remember, equations are basically comparisons between two expressions. We're making a mathematical statement about two expressions being equal. And since we have expressions, we need to always ask ourselves, can we simplify it? Can we perform any operations? And the answer is yes, we can actually perform quite a few. Over here in this equation, 100 minus 34 is equal to 7n plus 4n. You probably see two pairs of like terms. First of all, we have two whole numbers here. We have 134, and 100 minus 34 is 66. Okay, and when we look on the other side of the equation, we have this expression here, 7n plus 4n. And when we add 7n and 4n, how many n's do we have all together? We have 11n. Okay? These are like terms. They have the same last name. That last name is n. Okay? Now it becomes a one-step equation, because now we need to ask ourselves, well, we want to solve this equation. 66 is equal to 11n. It's a simplified version of our original equation. And how can we solve for n? Well, we need to isolate n, this variable. We need to first ask ourselves, well, what's happening to n? It's being multiplied by 11. Well, we need to undo that. We need to do the inverse operation. And the inverse operation, or what is the opposite of multiplying something by 11? It's dividing it by 11. And we know that what we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other side. So we need to divide both sides of the equation by 11 to keep everything balanced. And 11n divided by 11 is n. And 66 divided by 11 is 6. And if we go back and we're to plug in or evaluate this expression with n being equal to 6, we would find out that this is true. Because if we take 100 minus 34, we would get 66. We already did that math. And if we took 7 times n, which is 6, plus 4 times n, which is 6, well, 7 times 6, what's that? I believe it's 42. And 4 times 6 is 24. And sure enough, if we add these two together, we're going to get 66. So 66 is equal to 66. Now, what might be a little unusual, or somebody might be uncomfortable with this, is when we read the solution to this equation, we have it's 6 is equal to n. So far, you've always had the variable on the left-hand side, and you say n is equal to some number. Well, you got to get comfortable with this. You can have the number on the left-hand side and the variable on the right-hand side. We're just saying that these two expressions are equal to one another. And you could flip them around if you wanted to. Now let's look at this next equation. It's a little more complex, And there's a little more simplifying to do. On this side here, we have 14 times 4 is equal to the expression 2 times the sum of 3y plus y. Okay, well, where do we get? Let's start with this expression over here. We need to simplify it. 4 times 14. Well, 4 times 4 is 16. Carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Plus the 1 is 56. So we have 56. Over here, what do? We have to distribute. We have to distribute 2 times 3y is 6y plus 2 times y is 2y. And is there any more simplifying? Well, over here we only have one term we're working with. We're 56. You can't get much simpler than that. But over here we have 6y plus 2y. How many y's do we have altogether? We have 8 y's. Okay, now we've simplified both of these expressions, or the entire equation. Okay, and we can't simplify it anymore. The question is, can we solve? Well, absolutely. We need to solve for the variable, and we need to isolate the variable. How do we isolate the variable? We want to get it all by itself. Well, what's happening to the variable? Well, it's being multiplied by 8. Well, how do we undo multiplying something by 8? What's the opposite or inverse operation? It's dividing it by 8. And what we do to one side of the equation, to keep everything balanced, we must also do the other side. So if we divide 8y by 8, we end up getting y. And if we divide 56 by 8, we're going to get 7. And there we have it. Y is equal to 7.